Lewis Hamilton ended his first preseason test with Ferrari ranking as the second fastest driver, and ahead of his new teammate Charles Leclerc. But how did his performance truly fare? Hamilton's transformation has been the main subject in Formula One so far, in 2025, drawing considerable attention to his first appearances and track work with Ferrari. Although performance is what really matters, the 3 days of testing in Bahrain represented the first real opportunity to assess how quick and comfortable Hamilton is in his new car, and naturally, how competitive this vehicle might be. The switch to Ferrari aims to reinvigorate the latter stages of the career of the driver, who is a 7-time world champion, after an unsatisfactory stint with Mercedes. This was partly due to the fact that the ground effect cars of that team were never sufficiently good to contend for a title, and also because Hamilton faced difficulties adapting to them. So, what is the initial verdict on Hamilton's feeling in the Ferrari? Although both he and the team acknowledge that there is work to be done, the driver affirms that he is truly enjoying the car. This statement marks a change compared to the past, when Hamilton used to say that he detested the current era of cars because they did not suit his driving style. Whenever Hamilton appeared somewhat limited on track during the tests, it usually occurred when Ferrari was following a testing schedule that did not include configuration adjustments to improve the car's feel. As will be discussed later, Hamilton is still on a steep learning curve to master the nuances of driving a Ferrari and fully understanding it. His initial feedback, however, indicates the best feeling he had experienced in a long time, as he reports that the car responds to his commands, a sharp contrast to how he described the worst moments during his final days at Mercedes. The end of Hamilton's chapter at Mercedes was not solely due to him driving subpar cars. In qualifying, for example, he was slower than his teammate George Russell. Hamilton's natural style, which involves attacking corners with intense braking, did not align with a setup of car and tires that were always operating at the limit. There were 2 lines of thought regarding this. The first suggested that such behavior was an intrinsic characteristic of ground effect cars, which tend to exhibit understeer at the entrance of corners and instability, as the ground effect decreases when the car slows down, causing traction to shift from the rear to the front. Moreover, the modern Pirelli tires do not react favorably to any form of sliding. If the front axle loses grip due to slight initial understeer, then the rear axle might also lose grip because of instability in the middle of the corner, causing a dual problem that raises tire temperature and further reduces traction. Certain aspects of this situation are evidently a consequence of the current regulation. Hamilton acknowledges that his natural style conflicts with the demands of the cars, and that he did not adapt as well as other drivers, thus constituting a personal limitation. On the other hand, there is the theory that the Mercedes cars driven by Hamilton only accentuated these characteristics because they were extremely unpredictable. Even George Russell encountered challenges due to extreme fluctuations in the vehicle's balance. It was always contemplated that a switch to Ferrari could mitigate the difficulties Hamilton faced, as the Italian team's cars appeared to be more tolerant of a late braking style and aggressive cornering compared to those of Mercedes. However, there is a limit to judging this hypothesis solely based on tests. Hamilton was still adapting to a new car, and had not yet reached the point of extracting the final hundredths of a second of performance. And as usual, the pursuit of ultimate performance is exactly where a car that seems good, or a driver who appears in full control, can suddenly encounter challenges. Even with these caveats, Hamilton demonstrated notable ease in driving the Ferrari, showing smooth transitions between braking and turning, something that occasionally was a problem for the Mercedes drivers. Track conditions varied between Hamilton's and Leclerc's fastest laps, which influences both Hamilton's perception for refining his driving in the Ferrari and our ability to make an accurate comparison between the two. For instance, Hamilton's fastest laps on the second day were very similar, and there are no clear indications that he overdid it on the corner entrance and then lost time on the exit. In this metric, he equaled Leclerc, who exhibits a notably distinct driving style. Unlike Hamilton, Leclerc frequently uses the overlap between acceleration and braking throughout the lap, a strategy that gives him advantages, especially in qualifying. This technique, which Leclerc has always applied with great effectiveness, stands out particularly in Bahrain, where certain corners favor his unique way of decelerating and maneuvering the car while maintaining an unusually low minimum speed in medium-speed corners. In medium-speed corners, where the front of the car can become overloaded, Leclerc somehow manages to rotate the car while applying an extra dose of acceleration, allowing him to reach maximum power on corner exit earlier. In the low-speed corner number 10, however, a slight overlap between accelerating and braking is observed on Hamilton's part, which gives him a time advantage over Leclerc. The excessive use of the accelerator was also noticeable during the days Hamilton drove for Mercedes, suggesting that he may share a trait similar to Leclerc's, although less pronounced, which could be advantageous if Ferrari is able to adjust the car accordingly. A clearly negative point in Hamilton's tests with Ferrari was the mileage. Among the drivers, Hamilton was one of those who needed more adaptation during the tests in Bahrain, finishing with one of the lowest lap counts. Only the Red Bull duo, composed of Max Verstappen and Liam Lawson, in addition to a sick Lance Stroll, completed fewer laps. This situation arose from several factors. On the second day, when Hamilton took part in the morning session, the unusual sight of a slightly wet track combined with a very light drizzle compromised conditions for a while, leading many teams to remain in the pits for extended periods. On the third day, Hamilton's first race simulation was cancelled. The start of his sequence of long laps was interrupted, and although he returned to the track, his session was prematurely ended due to an anomaly detected by Ferrari in the telemetry. This scenario obviously limited the opportunities for Hamilton's work. He had diligently followed the team's program during the first 2 days, so the last day was meant to be the chance to push the car harder, test different configurations, and finally perform some genuine long laps to understand how the vehicle behaves during a race stint. In this respect, the tests were not as productive as expected, and indicate that Hamilton arrives in Australia somewhat underprepared, which is regrettable, although predictable. Nevertheless, the driver expressed satisfaction with what he called a solid foundation for the season. Hamilton is clearly delighted with his first month at Ferrari, stating that it could not have been better. He even mentioned an accident with Ferrari in 2023 during a private test in Barcelona, which he considered necessary as part of the process of adapting to the behavior of a Ferrari when pushed to the limit. According to him, the integration process has proceeded in an exemplary manner.